Morning. We're just giving it another 2 minutes to have people arrive in the webinar. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say we would get started now. Thank you for joining us on this webinar today. Good morning to everybody. We are today starting our webinar series on Asset Lifecycle Information Management. And first of all, I would like to start by briefly introducing our speakers today. We will guide you, Fiona and myself, through the next round about 45 minutes of this webinar. Fiona has been with the company Think Project for more than 15 years, and she's a senior consultant for asset data management. She's guided numerous clients through the implementation and training for our asset management software. And my name is Anne-Catherine. I'm with the company for 3 years now. I'm an enterprise account manager for the Benelux and Nordics market. And I've been working with clients, particularly in the energy and infrastructure sector. So before we get started with the content, there are some organizational topics. First of all, there will be a recording of this webinar. So you will get a link after the webinar to view it again. Second, you are all muted and there's no video, also due to the recording and to data security issues. And then finally, if there are any questions or comments that you have, please provide them in the chat, and we will bundle the questions in the end and have, try to answer them if time allows in the end. So as I said before, this is a webinar series on Asset Lifecycle Information Management. And today we are in webinar 1. But in total, we have 3 webinars, all covering different aspects of information management. And we want to make it digestible for you. That's why we have a picture of this elephant. We want to eat the elephant one bite at a time to make it digestible. So today's webinar is on asset data and asset operations. The second webinar will be on BIM and BIM to field. And the third webinar will be on project collaboration. So what's the structure for today? Well, first we will start with an introduction to information management, to the challenges for infrastructure and energy assets, and also to an introduction to digitalization. So in this chapter, you will learn about the why. Then, as a second chapter, we will present Think Project's enterprise solution. So that's where you will learn about the how. And afterwards, Fiona will give a live demo on asset data and asset operations. And here you will learn about the what. So after having covered the why, the how, and the what, we will round up the session with a summary and hands-on implementation recommendations. So let's start with the introduction. When we first think about infrastructure assets, we think about roads and rail, we think about bridges, we think about energy converter stations, or even offshore platforms. And what are the challenges that come with these types of assets? Well, first of all, they are critical infrastructure. Without the supply of electricity or without the provision of a stable public infrastructure network, modern society would not be able to function. So it's all about reliability, availability, maintainability, and safety in this case. Second, they are capital intensive. The construction of and maintenance of these type of asset is very costly. So it is important to manage your budgets well during all phases of the life cycle of an asset and to possibly extend service life of these assets to make them more budget optimized. Third, sustainability. There's a growing need for sustainability. With the goal of net zero by 2050, it is important to reduce carbon emissions during construction and maintenance. So, and what's more, with the energy assets in particular, we are facing a number of projects now coming for renewable energy, such as offshore wind farms or also solar plants that are being created. As a fourth topic, we see it's a complex portfolio that you are managing. So there are different assets of different age. They are managed either alone or in cooperation with joint ventures and a number of external contractors. So multiple projects need to be managed at the same time with multiple parties being involved. And then finally, conservation of know-how. So the demographic change that we have will lead to a lack of new joiners or personnel joining the workforce. And at the same time, very knowledgeable people will retire from work. So how can we do an increasing amount of work, of projects with fewer people? And how is the know-how made available for the future? All these challenges that we've seen here, they are somewhat related to the concept of the asset lifecycle and also to information management. And this is what we're going to look at next. So if you think about the concept of asset lifecycle, you have the different phases. It starts normally with a feasibility study, then there are some design steps, then it goes to construction, then we hand over to operations, then we have the operations and maintenance phase, and at some point there will be either renovation or decommissioning, demolition. So why is the life cycle actually of interest for us? Well, because along this whole circle, information, data is being created in each phase. And what's more, data is also needs to be made available to make good decisions at a later point in the stage. Data being created maybe in a permits phase needs to be available in an operations phase. And what we see with a lot of our clients is that asset information produced during the asset lifecycle is mainly focused on design and construction on the three items here, but the whole part of handover, operations, maintenance is somewhat ignored or deprioritized. But interestingly, if we look at this chart, when it comes to time and cost of infrastructure assets, while the construction period is between maybe 5 to 8 years, the operations and maintenance period is up to 50 years and more. And the same goes true for the budget for cost. The budget for construction is only a fragment of the investment that is needed for maintenance and operations. So the key question that we are asking in this webinar is, why is the importance of the maintenance phase not taken into account when it comes to collecting information? Why don't we orientate information management during design and construction towards a good handover and usable information for the O&M team? So let's look at the concept of information management first before we answer that question. And to make it easier, we will take this circle and make it a straight line so that it's good to use for our next slide. So what is information management? If we take the life cycle, most people think about information management at first hand about, hey, that's about document and it's about archiving. And yes, the documents are created in each phase, and at some point they are also archived to be available for a later stage. But actually, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to consider below the water. And what is that? So first of all, maybe stakeholder management, communicating internally, cross departments, or externally with external stakeholders. Second, efficient processes, for example, workflows for reviews. Third, documentation and quality control, to make information searchable via metadata, for example. Then budget, we had this topic before, budget and cost controlling. How do you make an as-is analysis compared to the as-planned analysis? Contract and change management, yet another topic, managing changes and claims with your external contractors during the whole construction phase. And finally, asset operations, providing relevant information for a work order at the right point in time to the right person when they are doing the job on site. So all of this is what we consider information management. And yes, it contains documents. That's true. So this is talking about documents and archive is not the wrong answer, but it's not just documents. It's also metadata that we are collecting. It's the correspondence that's taking place that is documented, and it's the tracking of actions and decisions. And information management within infrastructure assets is a complex subject because all of these topics are strongly interdependent. And yeah, why is this so? Let's take a look. So if you think about challenges in information management, and what we hear from our clients is, first of all, it's we usually face a lack of data and a lack of data quality. What does it mean? For example, data is often generated from scratch in each phase, or aggregated information is missing. We only get pieces of data instead of having the context text that goes with the data. Or for example, also on mobile solutions during inspections, not the right information is portrayed to be able to do a good inspection. As a second point, what we see is that we have a lack of processes. So it's not defined who reviews which document at what point in time, or for example, what documentation do I need to be able to enter the next milestone? As a third point, we also see a lack of collaboration. That can be, for example, that externals do not get access to documents or data due to data security rules. Or, for example, also that the asset management team is not involved early on because it's a separate department. So that's something that's behind the fence and not with our team. And finally, what we also see is a lack of integration. So, for example, data is saved in different locations. There are duplicates of documents, so we don't know which one is the right version at this point in time. And we see manual handover from one phase to the other when it comes to data and documents that need to be delivered for the next team at the next phase. So as a summary, we could say that information management does not take place across the asset lifecycle today. And actually lacking technology or lacking integration is just one reason why this is not working, but there's so much more to it. So, but if we talk about, for example, definition of processes, if we talk about what is our standard for information management, what is our ambition towards data quality, all these, they are more soft factors. It's not IT related, but they are also very important. And I guess these challenges are somewhat probably one part of the answer why the importance of maintenance phase is not taken into account when it comes to collecting information. But of course, well, this has some consequences. We can go on like this. It somehow works. We know this because assets are created and assets are maintained, but there are some consequences to it. We will see that the triangle of cost, quality, and time gets out of balance. So for example, there's a time increase because approval processes take longer, or there's a quality decrease because mistakes are not discovered early on, but later once they are already on site, and then there needs to be more effort to fix them. But all of these dimensions have another impact, namely on risk. So for example, documentation at the end of a project, does it fulfill the requirements that is needed also from governmental regulations that we have in infrastructure assets? And as another dimension, we see social and environmental impacts of these. So for example, how satisfied are your employees when they are searching for information and don't find it? Or How about material waste due to inefficiency having an impact on the environment? So, but there's the good news, as always, digitalization can help to face these challenges. And this is actually a study that I took from PwC from last year on digitalization in the construction industry. So here you see capabilities, and in red you see the current skills that, according to the study, are available in the market of construction. And then in orange you see the potential that they actually have. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail on each of them, but just to mention the top 4. So PwC identifies a strong potential for cloud platforms, cloud technologies, laser scanning, simulation, visualization, or real-time reporting. And they also identified benefits that come with them. So, and the top 3, they mentioned collaboration and communication is improved. There's an increased efficiency leading to time decrease, and we have cost reduction identified. And without surprise, they lead us back to our information management challenges and also to the triangle of cost, quality, and time. So as a summary, digitalization can help to overcome some of the challenges that we see in information management because it helps to change the way we work and how we make decisions, and how data is also being managed and also made available for all phases across the life cycle. And this is where Think Project can also support you with different capabilities. And that's what I would like to show you in our next chapter. So the solution. In the beginning, and also during the last couple of minutes, I asked why the importance of the maintenance phase is not taken into account when it comes to collecting information. Well, that's our main goal. With our solution, we want to make this happen. We want you to start with the end in mind, being the O&M phase, and we want you to have a seamless integration between the project phase and the operation phase. How do we do that? We have the information backbone with the asset master and data integration, which is basically a hierarchical asset repository that is set up by the asset management team. And it serves as a common structure that guarantees a consistent model of all interdependent information based on the asset ID and the asset hierarchy. So by using the asset structure from design phase onwards, and that's why it's also covering from design to build and then to operate and maintain, you begin with the end in mind already in the design phase. And of course, you have already existing external systems in place, for example, such as SAP, and the master data integration allows for an integration with your systems that are already in place. And then if we think about other tasks that come along the life cycle, there's a strong interconnection between the integration layer and the other modules. So in this case, information collaboration, basically, as you probably know, as a CDE functionality with document and data exchange with stakeholders. This contains review processes, decisions, queries, or even contract management. Then we have BIM coordination and BIM validation, viewing 3D models, clash detection, scheduling, quantity takeoff. These are just some examples. And of course, we want to bring all information that we have to the field. So for inspections, defects, or even equipment commissioning, we would like to have relevant information available on site. And finally, asset operations. And this is also what we're going to see later, talking about, for example, planned or unplanned maintenance, asset assessments, or asset portfolio reporting. So with Think Project's enterprise solution, all information related to the asset is available through one integrated portal and provided with context. So we have asset information, we have asset requirements, we have risks, we have decisions, we have stakeholder information, everything in one place, and visible for all collaborating parties. So externals can also get access, but of course, with certain limits on roles and permissions. And today in the live demo, we will focus on asset operations and asset master data integration. And in the upcoming webinars, as mentioned before, we will cover the other topics. So I will now hand over to my colleague Fiona to start with one introduction chart, and then she will present the live demo.
Right. Thanks very much, Anne-Catherine. Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to take you over and do a bit of a live demo here, but Anne-Catherine's just showing us a couple of comments on the slide here. So we're going to focus on the asset data and how we manage that on the map, and then briefly have a look at the asset operations side of it. So that's about managing the asset, whether it's planned or unplanned maintenance, and then putting a dollar value against that so that you're getting an idea of the costs it's incurred in managing an asset. So if you just stick with me while I change the presenter and hook into my screen. And right.
We can see your screen. Yeah.
Pardon? You can?
We can see your screen, yes.
Brilliant. Okay, great. Thank you. I'll just turn my camera off because that may be one too thing for me. Stop sharing my webcam. Perfect. Oh, okay, cool. So hopefully you can all see my screen. So our asset management solution is spatially driven. So in this example, we're obviously looking at a map of the top of Europe here. And this is based on this example on the Google Maps, but you can use any particular map that you prefer as your base maps. Data is added onto the map in what we call layers of information. So at the top here, I've got two different layers, which I can do by selecting on the add. I can add as many layers as I want. Once the layer is added up here, it can then be made visible by selecting it. So when you open up, typically in the beginning, a layer is in what we call clustered mode. So you're able to see the numbers, and as you zoom in, so the bubbles expand based on the location of the asset. Now, we do know that there are a lot more wind turbines up in Europe than what we're currently showing here. So for the purposes of this demo, I've just reduced the number just so that it's a live demo and responds pretty smartly. So while we're looking at in the clustered mode, it's easy to come up under the settings here and change it back to standard. And now we can start to see the physical locations of each asset. So each asset has its own set of geometry. And as you zoom in, you can start to see more and more, they become clearer and clearer. As you hop over any one of these assets, you'll see the little hand comes out, and if you tap on that, this comes up with a little quick reference guide. So all of these things that I'm going to be showing you in this little short segment is completely applicable to every asset class. So whether it's point assets like wind turbines, whether it's a station asset, whether it's a linear asset or a road, a rail network, our software works with all of those different asset classes. So don't feel that we're just focusing on one. I'm just doing that for the purposes of this demonstration. So these little pop-up boxes allow you to just pick attributes which you're interested in and show about that particular asset. And these are defined on a personal basis, or they can be shared and made available to everybody. But as we know, we're not all interested in the same set of data, which is why it's really nice that these are customizable. So you've got information about this one particular asset that I've tapped on. So it's a Vesta wind turbine, and I can see the age is roughly 7 years old. At the bottom here, I have a number of little quick links that will take me off to add a job, raise an inspection, change the geometry, etc. This one here is really useful. If I click on this, this now takes me into the asset and shows me the full detail that's sitting behind all of that. So if you're thinking about the asset from construction, where you start trying to pick up a whole lot of information right through to operations and maintenance, you could be talking about, I don't know, 100 different attributes or more. But what we really want to do is focus on the ones that we're interested in at the moment, but we want to be able to record a whole lot more of information, and that's what we're seeing here. So this gives you the detailed information about it, and at the top we also have the ability to manage what we call multimedia links, and this is where you can click on something. In this case it's a document, and it's the technical specification around collecting or around this particular model, and then there's a link directly onto the site. So if I click on here, this will then take me through, and that could be a URL link to a live webcam at the site. It can be a number of different things. So that gives you the information about one particular asset, and that's true, that same information for all of these little green dots or wind turbines that we're seeing. Again, same thing, but in this case we can see the model is different. Really nice, some of the other functionality. So if I click on my layer here, I can now see that I can show things like changing the way the data is viewed. So we have what we call thematic rules. So if I click on this and say, fine, let's select a column. So something like age, for example. So I have 600 odd wind turbines out there, but show me what they look like if I use the age profile. So let's apply that, and this will now show you, if I just come out slightly. So the green is in the nice version. Just go here. So these are the newer assets in the green, and the ones over here in the orange and the red are of a later age. So if I tap here, I can see that we're up now around 18 years. And so that's why you're seeing that colour difference. From the same map, you're also able to report on this data in the form of a graph. So if I click on the option here to graph it, I can see this is based on the construction date, which echoes what we were just looking at here. So this is based on the year of construction, so when it was put in, but I can then just as well tap on the construction date and see, right, give it to me based around the model. And in this case, I'm now going to see a slightly different graph, which is possibly a bit better shown as a pie chart. And I can hover over each of these and see what percentage that makes up, or I can drill down a bit deeper and see based on the model what the numbers are and the percentage. So this is just live reporting based on the data that I'm currently looking at on the map. So spatially is one really good way of seeing where your assets are, but what about when you want to deal with multiples of these assets? So we have down the side here what we call grid view. So if I click on the wind turbine, this brings back the same data that we were looking at visually, but more in a tabular format. And I can now see, if I scroll along the bottom here, the various columns that I've selected to view. I can see down the bottom here that there are 639 items. So this could be hundreds, this could be thousands of items, but based on the data that I'm currently looking at in the screen. There's some really nice functionality at the top here. You have the ability to bulk change items, and in particular you have the ability to export. So this means you can drop the data or the selected items if you want to put into the little checkbox here, and drop this directly out into Excel, which will come down into your downloads directory. So that makes it a really nice interface. But again, you can change what you see here, and you can hide and look at different columns depending on what your interests are. For each one of these particular models, as we can see down the side here, I can tap on that, and that will then bring me up the same detail screen that we were looking at before on the map, except we're on a different asset. So this wind turbine, a Vesta, same again, but a 112.3. And from here, I can click on here and decide to go back to the map. But we also have the ability under the auditing option here to capture every change that's made by a user. In this case, it's all been me, but in theory, if this data is being maintained by an external contractor or subcontractor, their names would appear in the list there, and the date and time that each one of those changes occurred. And if I can click on one of those items, it will show me here that I've set the construction date for 2020. So we have a very granular view of what that data looked like when it was put in and who's managed it. Bearing in mind that this is permission driven, so potentially if you come in here and these columns are grayed out or disabled, that means that you've got view only permission. So this is not a case of everybody having the ability to update all of these data sets. From here, under the actions, I can also click on show on map, and this will take me directly back to this one particular asset. And if I zoom out, I can see where I'm sitting. So I've actually now moved further up in the country, back up here. So that's highlighted that, and you can see that it's selected because it's got this little halo around it. So how do we get the data in? So let's just like to take you through adding an asset. So we've talked about data on the map and data in the grid. So those are visualization tools, but actually adding in a piece of information also becomes key. So down the bottom here, you have the ability to add, again, on the assumption you have the correct permissions. So when you think about a wind turbine, that's a point asset, so it's just located at one particular point. So you can see here that you have options. In this case, I'm going to select a point, and I'm just going to tap on the map where this is located. If you were using the mobile or the field solution, you could be taking this out in an offline mode, and you would be doing this as you're actually physically standing there next to the asset or to the defect, or when you're performing a checklist assessment. So I've clicked on the map. If I click next, I'll just move through. So you can make things specifically on a road. In this case, I haven't done it. So here we're now presented with our third solution, which we refer to as a user-defined table. So here, this is where you can set up tables to capture the data that you specifically want. Just because you're a construction site, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody wants that same set of information. And certainly at the construction phase, there's a whole lot of attributes that you set up which you won't know the answer to, i.e. what date has it gone into commission. So with our user-defined table, we enable things like lookups. So here you can specify what's the manufacturer of the turbine, and then in particular what models you are going to be using through on this particular project. So as soon as I select a model, the way I've defined this this table is based around the model that I've selected, so these values change here. So the size of the rotor blades is different, for example. So if I click and reselect a smaller one, so the values should change as well. I can select the status, and I'm going to put it into any one of these statuses. And the idea should be, as the statuses go through and the quality gates or the data moves on, so you're going to move up the progress here. So if I'm going to just put this into the commissioning stage, I can then go and save that. So straight away, I've now come across an error. That wasn't just my fault. I did make sure I didn't populate this. So as we move into the commissioning phase, what we're saying here is that all of the assets need to have a construction date. So it's telling me I can just come down here and set the construction date to today. And again, you can put validation checks on all of these things. So at the beginning, the construction date was not mandatory, but these values up here are mandatory. So, and they're tied into the model selection. So I should now be able to save that, and I'll be given a piece of information at the top there that indicates that I have now saved that item. So that will have appeared on the map. I think it was this one. Maybe not. Oh, it was this one here, sorry. Yeah, so I've added that onto the map. I can see it spatially, but when we think about a wind turbine, we also think about other parts of that. So I can come in here. So I've got the wind turbine, but now I want to add some components, i.e. the tower. So if I click on here and I go add and I select a tower as a component, And then I can put information about the tower. So what's the height of the tower? 89. And that's the information that I have, and that's all that I've got. So what I'm now doing is starting to build a hierarchical structure of the asset I'm building. And from the tower, the next logical thing to do is add, obviously, the rotor blades. And I'm just putting these in as a component. And here we're using things like calculated columns. So if I put in the blade length, so 60 meters, as soon as I save that, you will see things like the total blade length drives from the number of blades and the total blade length. So there's a calculated column. So all the way through, we are managing the data that is put in by the user. And again, as I said, you've got the ability to audit and see who's made all of these changes. So if I click on that, and now my little asset is sitting here on the map, and I can click on that and bring up and see how it sits in the hierarchical structure. Taking that to the next level, you can click on things like the wind farm, which is obviously the parent for a wind turbine. And you can see here from this particular wind farm, I've got 30 different wind turbines all sitting under here, but they're all effectively that same model from within the Vesta family. So that's giving you a sort of a wrapped up view of the particular assets. So if we think about operations and maintenance and raising jobs, you can do that in a number of ways. So you can pick an asset, and this little quick link here, it says it will add a job or an activity directly onto the asset. So this is using and referencing back to what Anne-Katrine was just saying before about integrated data sets. So if I click on here, this will bring up a job screen, or what we call a dispatch. And it will fill in some basic details about where it's come from and what the contract is. So this is where I would be getting a subcontractor to manage my asset, or particularly this particular defect. And here I want to raise a job around peeling tower, paint coming off, and I'm just going to assign it to me. And as soon as I save it, because I have it set up with what we refer to as an auto-claiming line, it's automatically brought through my item that I'm going to use to claim for it. So we're actually recording, or in this case, estimating the cost to do the maintenance, and then how much that's going to cost us when we actually do the work and it's completed in the field. So if I close that, and then, for example, I could click on information. I've got no pictures, so I could just drag up a picture and drop it in here. And that could be pictures of where the paint is peeling directly, that is taken on site by the person doing the inspection. So if I save that, that will have added one job onto that particular asset. So if I now click on this one, click on the asset itself, up the top here, I can now see I've got one open job. So over time, you will start to see the history of maintenance, of inspections, of checklist assessments, and they all appear up the top here as little quick links so that you can go in and you can understand the life cycle of that particular asset. And in this case, I can see that the job is open, but over time, you're going to see open jobs, completed jobs, and you will then understand with completed jobs how quickly somebody responded, so what the KPIs are around the closing off of the jobs. It's a bit tiresome selecting one asset at a time to add defects to. So what you can do from within my wind turbine layer again is go select by rectangle. So if I click here, select by rectangle, I can highlight the assets in bulk. It highlights them here, and then from back on my wind turbine layer, I can come in and add dispatches. And this will add a dispatch to each particular wind turbine that I have selected in this particular grab that I did. So this is a quick way of adding assets in a sort of a proactive, managed way, but you can also schedule dispatches or jobs to be created as they come through. I think that just came up. It's just taking a, here we go, right. So in this case, I want to put a more generic fault in here. So in this case, I'm going to put a bird and mat monitoring system on each one of those wind turbines. And again, I'll just assign it to me. So the assign to is really nice because that's when I open my tablet up or my mobile phone, when I go out in the field, all of those jobs will be assigned to me. Because I've bulk added a number of jobs, it's automatically brought me into this screen, and I can now see where all of these jobs are and tap on any one of these, and it will then show me that same set of information. And if you've got claiming set up, then that will all tie in and come back here. So that all links through, and based on the map, on an asset, adding an asset, putting on maintenance, scheduling activities, it's all managed from within the map, but everything can also be done from within the grid as well. So using the user-defined table module, you can define, as you step through the life cycles of an asset at the different quality gates where different columns are required, and the users then are informed or advised where there's information missing. So if we take that to the next step, and we just take a quick brief trip over here. So this is the same concept we're looking at, but in this case, we're looking at towers. But what I wanted to do was actually take you up into the North Sea and show you a package of data. So this is, if I click on my little package icon here, I can select to show different assets. And so as I select this, you can now see that different layers are starting to load on the map. So this is a really structured hierarchical way of managing, in this case, what we would refer to as a station asset, or this could be equally as a building, for example. So this is an offshore substation. If I just close that, as each of these layers have added, so you can see each one of them has a grid down the side here. And I can click on any one of these and go zoom to all of the items, and it will now take me out. So we're in the middle of the North Sea. We can't see any level of detail, hence the blue sea. But if I click on this information, I can see that I'm on the main deck of my offshore substation. It works in exactly the same way, same sort of icons at the bottom here. And if I click on the detail, it will now take me in and show me that same information that we were looking at, but a different set of attributes, because we're looking at a deck instead of a wind turbine. If I look at my hierarchy blade here, I also have now the ability to go back up to my parent. So this is going to walk me effectively back up the tree. So I've gone from the deck up to the top side of the platform, and then right up using the various phases of how this has been set up, the hierarchical layers. And you'll see here that we've used the RDSPP designation system. So the asset management system is configurable to handle any particular RDSPP or designation system that you're currently using. Take me right up to the top of my platform. Take a few minutes. So we're currently sitting at the top on the ball and beater. And from here, you can then expand out and you can see the other parts. So this is really, really hierarchical in detail. And from here, for example, on our crane, I can see information about the crane. And then with underneath that, we're now looking at links here, which if I select one, will take me directly through to information that's already stored in TPCDE. So if I click here, so this is the repository of all of the documents, and if I click on this, this will then push me through and open up into TPCDE, where I can actually view this one particular document. So the documents are residing in one place. So it's not like you've got 6 versions of the document. This is documents are managed within TPCDE, and the asset management software is looking at that link to bring up that set of information. So there's only one version of the truth effectively for this particular picture. So if I just go back in here, so we are managing these same links that, or the same attributes that you see on the TPCDE screen for this. If we just come back up to our parent, there's some other nice things that are built into the software. So we can see we've got multimedia here, and I've also got this schematic link on the top of my hierarchical structure. So this is where we have a quick peek in at the abilities of our asset management solution as we move into the 3D modeling space. So you have your model and you can view it just as you would normally. You can click on it and turn it off. But what you can do, which is where this really comes into its own, is that you can then click on the various assets in here and have them linked to the asset and the attributes and that information in RAM. So if I clicked on here, our asset management solution, I've clicked on this transformer and it's brought back up that same set of information in the same format, but different attributes because we're looking at a different asset. And I'm going to stop there because I'm going to, we're sort of bouncing off into the next presentation, which is due for next month. So Anne-Catherine, if that's okay with you, I'd like to hand back. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have we got any questions?
Thank you, Fiona. We're going to put the questions to the end of the webinar, and I'm now going to finish this webinar with a summary. I'm just going to start sharing my screen.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So yeah, what has Fiona shown to us? Let's do a little homework check. What we've seen is that when it comes to asset data and asset master data integration, we've seen three highlights basically. So first, we've seen the map and the grid concept. So you can set up an asset hierarchy like a database in a grid, but at the same time, the system allows for asset visualization on a geospatial map. As a second point, it's configurable. So asset information can be, with the user-defined tables that Fiona showed, they can be configured to your needs and to your processes. So how many do you want? 100 metadata, or do you just need 50 for one component? This is something that you can configure. And finally, this module allows for a seamless handover because you build up your as-built documentation during the project phase and link relevant documents or data to the asset and the asset hierarchy. That's what Fiona has also shown with the single source of truth for document versions. And then we've seen asset operations as well. So what we've seen here is that same like with the asset data management, it is very visual. So you can visualize and analyze your assets as we've seen with the little real-time reportings. It's agnostic, so you can manage any type of asset, any asset class in any location at any time. We've seen an offshore station, we've seen a wind turbine, but we could also see roads, or we could also see cables underground. So that's all managed within one system. And finally, it's collaborative. So what Fiona has shown is, for example, a dispatch, a work order. And this is not only accessible for the asset owner, but also for the contractors that support during the execution of these jobs. So in summary, we combine database functionality with asset visualization. We provide this one single source of truth that makes asset information data-driven. And with that, I think Fiona has shown it quite well. We have a really good user experience. So the live demo was only on the two modules now shown with orange, but of course, if we think about the whole solution, there's much more to it, and the whole solution itself serves a purpose, namely the purpose of seamless information flow. And what do we mean with this actually? So how does this differ from the classic information flow? This is a chart I would like to show you. It's a the picture represents, so on the bottom you see the asset lifecycle stages, just like a little summary, not with the whole asset lifecycle. And then on the side axis you see asset information value. And then there are two lines. So we have the orange line, which we now call the classic information flow, where you see the information drops every time we enter a new stage. And our ambition with the TP Enterprise solution is really to have a seamless information flow and to allow for the seamless integration between the design, build, and operate and maintain phase. And in the end, there's a gap because with the seamless information flow, we will have the higher chance to get more information value, and this information value is even the difference becomes greater and greater the further down we are in the life cycle. So my question I have to you now is, where do you stand? Where does your company stand when it comes to information management? Because we are well aware that there are different stages of maturity with our clients. So some of our clients are in stage 1, which we call simple collaboration. It's a clear focus on documents. It's about revision safe archiving. There are some first workflows, but it's only focused on the construction phase. Then we have stage 2, which we call integrated functions, where we already focus on information management. So it's not only documents, but we also consider data as valuable information. And again here, but we are still in the construction phase only. And then after the construction handover, data is thrown over the fence. And as a third stage, this is what we would call asset lifecycle information management. And the benefits is really that we are talking about construction and maintenance phase coming together, and the teams also working together. So we start with the end in mind, and there's one way of working, no matter if we talk about a maintenance project or a new construction project. It's the standard way of working. And no matter in what stage you are, 1, 2, or 3, there's always a way to get started. And this is how we recommend doing it. So we've talked a lot about IT today, actually, but you do not buy a software, but a different way of working if thinking about asset lifecycle information management. Therefore, IT is just one part, but we need to think about strategy as well, about processes. So which processes have you defined that follow your strategy to reach your goals? And we need to talk about structure, like organizational setup, who does what, who needs to be involved, who has which approval competence. So this all needs to be considered before we think about IT as a vehicle to activate all the other bubbles. And finally, what we've seen in the past with our clients is that we should not neglect the concept of change management. It's a key success factor for our user acceptance. And what do we mean with change management? It's communication of goals, identifying the champions in the organization, having a proper training plan, reporting on milestones, having a transparent time plan for the whole implementation. And Think Project can accompany you on that because we've done it multiple times already. Speaking about numbers, in the past we've delivered around about 75,000 projects with a current client base of 3,300 clients and a user base of about 300,000 for all our products. And we've done this within 60 countries. So it's really also a multinational, even though we are a Europe-based company, it's really a multinational approach that we have here. So what these numbers tell you is that we bring a lot of best practice to the table to help you to define your way to go on with information management. And we've come to the end of the webinar, so we hope you liked it. And we would also like to invite you to join our second webinar, which is on BIM and BIM to field. And yeah, question from my side is, are you joining us again? And keep thinking about it. We will send out the date. And I want to thank you at this time for your attention. And we just have another minute to look at the questions in the chat. Okay. So there's actually one question in the chat, Fiona, that would be something for you. So the question is, who's checking, who's conducting the inspections? Is it just the asset owner, or is it actually the external contractor?
It could be both. So ideally, it would be somebody in the field managing the inspections. But yes, it could definitely go out to a subcontractor, and they would complete them looking at the asset itself, and obviously being able to take pictures and record any issues that they can see. And if need be, directly they can create a defect or a task to get some work done if they feel that it's at that particular, condition or severity level that will start affecting its useful life and stuff like that.
So it's actually also a procedural or a process that's taking place. It's not just capturing data, but also working with data.
Yeah, absolutely. Because yes, the data, everything you've been able to see on the map, or sorry, I don't know who asked the question, but everything you've seen on the map, you can take it out into the field and you can work with that data, and you can review the documents. You can see the last time a checklist inspection occurred, the last time any maintenance occurred on that particular asset. So everything's visible and offline, or you can view it out in the field specifically around what you're working with. So nothing is lost. It's all captured and available to everybody. Thanks. I hope that's answered the question, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we leave it like this, because we are now heading towards 10:59 on my watch at least. Yeah, so thank you very much for attending this webinar, and yeah, we hope you join us for the next time. And yeah, after this webinar, you will receive the recording, and please also, yeah, inform your colleagues and let them know what you learned today. We would be happy also to receive your feedback. Thank you.
Great. I see you've put your email down the bottom there.